Welcome to PHCPPros Behind the Wall podcast. I'm Ellen Rohr, plumber's wife, industry icon, and COO of Zoom Drain Franchising Company. With this podcast, our intention is to have real, thought-provoking conversations with people from across the PHCP industry. Of course, we want to entertain and encourage. Mostly, we want to connect and allow our guests to be vulnerable, to explore insights gained and lessons learned. Let's go behind the wall. Hey, hi, Chris Hunter.
Hey, Ellen Rohr.
I'm so happy you're here. I want to thank you for being one of my mentors. So often, if I've had a sticky question or an issue, I just count on you to be someone who will talk real to me. And I consider you a great friend and someone who has so much useful experience. Of course, I want to go behind the wall with you.
Well, I'm honored that you asked me to come and look behind the wall, because likewise, I think the same of you. Every time I've seen you at an event or read something that you wrote, I always take away something really good from it. Plus, your vibe, you're always glowing, and you're always just so full of energy. And I love being around people like you.
I'm a happy girl, and you're a happy guy. You're a grateful guy. And that comes across. And I am really excited to ask you a few questions. So, Chris, introduce yourself. How would you introduce yourself? What titles do you use for Chris Hunter?
Yeah, so I always have my first title, which is the true Chris Hunter, and then I've got my work title, right? So my true title is, first and foremost, I'm a follower of Christ. Then I'm a husband, a father, a grandpa, and now I'm a champion of the trades. So as long as I keep them in that order, things tend to go really, really well. It's whenever I start getting that order out of whack is when things kind of go awry. So I try to keep it in that order.
I want to pause there a minute. I like that you thought about it. That's obviously something that you're a thinker and you're going to explore what my role is in this life.
Yeah. So I mean, well, think about it. Like in business, anything you got clarity on, and you know the order and the way things should be, it helps you make decisions quick. It makes everything really clear. So yeah, I do think about that. And then at work currently, I am the director of customer relations at ServiceTitan, and that's a new role to me. I just started in this corporate world this year. I was a contractor before that.
That we're going to dig into that a little bit, because you went from being the cheese to being reporting in to
That's
reporting it. Now we always report to someone, as evidenced by your other titles, but that interests me. So let's go back a little bit as we go behind the wall. Let's go back into your background a little bit. Were there some salient moments in your life that changed the course of your life, either personally or professionally, as you look back? Who or what happened to you that shaped you?
That is a great question. By the way, great leaders ask a great question. So I know I'm in the presence of a great leader right here. So yes, there were some events that really shaped me. And I look back now, and I would have never chose the path that I went, but I pinch myself now to see, the path that I took and how it all fell into place. But one big one right off the bat was I took air conditioning class in high school as a complete blow off. I figured it was going to be an easy half a day. And then I would go my senior year and play baseball the rest of the day. And I'd never use this, but hey, I'd have an easy day and get to hang out with some of my friends. Fast forward a few years, I'm working at AT&T. I'm actually a communication technician, and 9/11 happened. And all of a sudden, they're going to lay off 10,000 people, 10,000 of the newest hired people. And I was one of them. And just so happened, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And they came to me and they said, hey, there's a chance you could stay. There's an air conditioning guy that's going to retire. And if you know anything about that, maybe you could take the test. And if you pass it, you can save your job. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just happened to remember a little bit about air conditioning. So that was one big thing that really started the whole air conditioning journey. Another big thing, another big step, I had a boss at AT&T that told me, he said, Chris, I really feel like you should go get your contractor license. He said, I see something special about you. He believed in me before I believed in me. I didn't know. I didn't have any plans of ever starting an air conditioning business. but I took his advice and I did it, and it ended up paying off. So taking that risk, leaving that very secure job and then going to start an air conditioning business.
Let's pause there for a moment. Michael
Yeah.
Gerber calls that the entrepreneurial seizure.
Yep.
Okay, what was yours? What precipitated? Is that the right word? What
Yeah.
came before your seizure?
I'm from Oklahoma. I just make up words, Ellen. So I get what you mean. Yeah.
Well, I'm your neighbor in Missouri, so
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah, so the entrepreneur seizure. So after he told me that, I actually went through the process, got my license. Still didn't plan on doing business, but I thought, you know what? Now that I got it, I'll do some calls for friends and families after hours. And I almost started a business that was called After Hours Heating and Air. And I thank God that I didn't, because that would have really pigeonholed me into the graveyard shift. But quickly things got way too busy, and I came to a breaking point where I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to leave this comfortable job or take off on this new journey, because I can't do both. This is about to kill me. So that was my moment that I made that decision to leave that job. And thank God for my wife. She was behind me. And I remember that first year I paid myself $25,000. That was my pay for being a business owner and working in the business that first year. And she never blinked an eye. She believed in me, and she said, "Hey, I'm behind you. Let's do it." So without that support, I would have never been where I am today.
That's very cool. Now, and that side hustle to a job is, I think that's good advice. Like I tell people, don't get a second job. Like
Yeah.
if you're not making ends meet, that second job, you're not going to get overtime at either of them. It's going to be really tough. If you can start a side hustle with that job, that might be that baby step you need to get into a business of your own. I'm interested that that's your story. Okay, so keep going. What are some other salient points?
Yeah. So a very key moment after that really transformed me from being a technician into looking at this like, wow, this is a business. Maybe I could actually build and grow. And if I do that, I'm going to have to start investing in people and learning how to do this business thing. Was joining the Service Nation Alliance. And I met some phenomenal mentors in that group, and went through a boot camp where they gave me, I equate it to my whole, like a college education condensed down to 2 weeks. I had a business education in 2 weeks at their boot camp, but it set me on a journey of, I need to learn. So I read Ron Smith's book, and I just did it. I didn't know any different. If Ron said it and he was successful, check, I took action on it. In same way with the Service Nation, if they said it and it was successful, I didn't doubt it. I just did it. So that was a really key moment in my business growth journey, was joining the Service Nation Alliance. After that, there was a phenomenal time, but a real key moment was the time where I decided it was time to sell the business. And that was a tough time as well. It was exciting. It was tough, but luckily back in the Service Nation boot camp, one of the first things they taught me was, you need to start with the end in mind. And I thought, why in the world would they start with the end in mind? I'm just trying to figure this thing out and get going. Why do I want to think about exit strategy? But as I got closer to that exit strategy, I started looking out at the different people that were uncommonly wealthy and they had abundance. And then I looked at other people that just worked their tails off and they made a decent living. Don't get me wrong, but they never had that extra. So I started studying those people like Ken Goodrich and Ben Stark and all of these people. And they all taught me about begin with the end in mind. So I took that journey, sold the company, and phenomenal story there. It actually sold twice, believe it or not. I don't know how in the world that even happens, but that's the beauty of private equity. Maybe we can talk about that later. But so that was a key moment. After that, there was one last really key moment. I woke up one day. It was late at night, passed out, and I blacked out. My wife takes me to the hospital. They did a scan of me. Next thing I know, they're sending me off to a PET scan. My PET scan lights up. They told me I had 8 masses in my lungs, and sent me to an oncologist. And an oncologist told me that I may have 6 weeks to live. And here I am on top of the world, just sold our business. Family's great, money in the bank. I mean, world's ahead of us. And all of a sudden they hit me with this, that you may be dead in a few weeks, and luckily they went in and took some of my lung out and realized that it was a very rare fungal infection that was making these tumors. It was eating my lung and I was going to be okay. It wasn't cancer. But for a whole year, it sidelined me. I was out. I couldn't think. I lost my zip, had zero energy. But that, I look back now, that was a huge blessing actually, because it made me value every single day that I get up and I get an opportunity to do another day. So I begin every day thanking God for another chance, and I end it by thanking God for letting me have that other chance. But it also did one other thing. I was still involved with my company, even after selling. That was the plan with the private equity group. I was going to stay. And it let me separate because I was sick. I couldn't do anything for a year. And it let my team, those leaders that I poured into all those years, blossom. And when they blossomed, they took off doing things really, really well. And I realized that it was so satisfying seeing them run without me there. So I never went back. I didn't. And I would have been doing them a disservice if I went back. But I think back now, I would have never separated probably from that company, from Hunter, Supertex, if there wouldn't have been an event like what happened to me. And I wouldn't be here having all the fun I am now at ServiceTitan. So very thankful for those key moments. It's laid out quite the journey for me, and I've learned a heck of a lot and made some amazing friends like you, and had a lot of fun along the way.
Okay, well, I can't wait to ask a few more questions here. So those salient moments were often aligned with mentors, with people who, like your boss at AT&T, who saw something in you that you might not have seen for yourself. I had an experience once upon a time when I was in high school, and I wrote a letter on economics. I really liked economics. I took some in high school and then in college. I loved the study of it. And I read the book Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith. I had to write a book report on it. To this day, even as I'm talking about it, the way the teacher responded to my essay was the first validation I ever got that I could communicate in writing. Wow. And it was like, I went from 0 to like, yes, please, on being able to write. Now, I'm a very functional writer. I love reading. I love literature. But that like was the start of like the confidence it took to, I'll write it, give it to me. I'll try, I'll take a swing at it. And as you know, writing a book, like being able to put some thoughts on paper or in a blog is a power. Copywriting is a very powerful skill to have anymore. So I love that, you mentioned that moment. Tell us a little more about, you reach out to some of these guys that you mentioned. Some of them seem a little larger than life. How did you approach them? How did you, and what was the result?
Yeah, no, I love hearing that story that you just shared too, because it truly inspires me to want to do the same for others, right? Because it's those little sparks that can set people off on a trajectory, and we never know what little thing we might think today. That's a little comment or a little thing we did for someone that sets that spark that can blow up into a passion. So that was really cool to hear your story again. But as far as the people, how did I reach out to them? Honestly, well, I was scared to death, but it was worth it. I knew what they had is what I needed. And even in, you'll hear me talk about go time. Well, that not only did we end up having a book about go time, but it was actually an acronym of what the letter stood for. And it was, after I studied successful people, they all followed this same thing, but I knew that they had something and I had to get it. And the only way I was going to get it was to get out of my comfort zone and take action and ask them. And people are, yeah, sure, some of them may blow you off, but for the most part, people love to help other people, right? Especially action takers. And then if you get a reputation of, hey, I'm going to take action, people will just voluntarily want to help you even more so. So yeah, just getting out of my comfort zone and realizing what I was going to ask them or approach them was worth it.
You talked about Service Nation. Was it that affinity group going somewhere and having access to people, which seems like 1,000 years ago right now, but seeing them in person, picking up the phone, how did you reach out?
Well, networking is so key. And I learned this from my father. He was actually in the network marketing business, believe it or not. He worked for a factory, or a refinery for 23 years and then was laid off, like corporate America normally, has those things. And then he went and did network marketing. And I saw what influence would do. Well, later on, he ended up taking some of these relationships and created a multi-million-dollar business out of this thing. The network marketing wasn't it, but it was the relationships that mattered. So I've always valued anytime I had the opportunity to meet someone like an Ellen Rohr or whoever, I want to make sure I'm there. So definitely plugging into the groups, learning who is successful, seeking them out and figuring out what are you doing, and just like Ken Goodrich, whenever it came time to sell my business, he invited me to come to Las Vegas just to learn and hear about the process. Other contractors did the same. So anytime that I had the opportunity, I actually took it.
I like what you said too about when they see that you're going to take action. Like sometimes someone will ask you for some advice and then they'll tell you why that's impossible.
Yeah.
It isn't going to work. But if someone says, okay, and then takes some action, even if it's unsuccessful, it's like, well, let's go. That's go time. That's where you'll see, I got more. What else do you want to talk about? Yeah, that didn't work. Well, there's other things to try, but seeing someone just without judgment, just take an idea and maybe challenge it or filter it back, through so that you can tweak it a lot. Not everything works. And maybe because it worked once, it may not work again, but that willingness to, I don't like where I am right now. I'd rather be over here. I'm going to try stuff is very seductive to people who are also go-getters and have energy and are willing to make some mistakes. So I think that's a really nice nuance.
Well, it's a two-way street, right? So I think one of the greatest gifts you can ever give to a mentor is the feedback of what you did with their advice. And once they see that, they're more than willing to give more and learn from your feedback and then help you stretch that goal or whatever that you're wanting to do. And I believe all mentors are constant learners as well. So with your feedback that you give them, they're going to learn how to get better at being a mentor.
I loved what you said too about your team. You got out of the way, and that's not the first time I've heard that story of getting sick and then that being such a pivotal point in your life, just in terms of awareness, appreciation, understanding, and in letting go and letting someone else grow. How exciting for them, how exciting for you. You must take great pride in your team for that result.
It was. And then part of the way that I structured our deal, they actually had equity in the company. And then after we sold the first time, then the private equity group went on a tear and grew even more. And they were able to recapitalize after that with a new private equity partner that partnered with them. And to see that bite of the apple for that team, and they made a lot of money as well. So that was almost more satisfying actually to see them blossom and then them, hear the stories of what happened with that. Because whether it was a little bit of money or a lot, it's all relative to what people think, but it was life changing to them. And just to know that, hey, wow, I was in the mix of that and saw that happen and they did it and they helped me as well. It was very gratifying.
Well, talk to me. You're a deep thinker. Talk to me about your mission, your purpose, your why, your primary aim. And some people have personal mission statements as well as professional or company statements. Have you explored this? I mean, I can tell by your nodding that this is a question you've pondered.
Yeah, so I have, and it's also something that I hate to say struggle, but each year I kind of re-examine. Not necessarily my mission, because that's very, very clear, especially the personal one. And I'll share it in just a second, but the work one, because now it's a little bit different. And what's my vision? And, now that I'm not the cheese, as you say, what does that look like? But for my personal one, I mean, it is very personal to me, but it was always build influence and point people to Jesus. So if you heard my original introduction, I'm very clear in who I am, what I believe in, and so I want to use that and even my professional world, not maybe so direct, but if I can build influence and do that, that's what I want to do. But now the work one, before at Hunter, it was very easy. I knew exactly what we wanted. I knew our vision. But now I'm like, all right, what do I do? What's my purpose now after this? And it really, I believe, it stems back to it's still to create and cultivate. I love creating and dreaming and solving problems and helping, build teams and seeing things happen. So it's still create and cultivate and really doing things that matter. That's what I want to do now. I want to do things that matter and set those sparks in people like yourself and others that have used that spark to go on and do things that are really awesome.
Well, I don't have any stories to tell of people who sold their companies and made a lot of money and then just walked on the beach forever. They always go back in, don't they? What's interesting about you, though, is you didn't start another contracting company, or not yet, which you can do whatever you want in this world. What made you want to go work for another company?
Yeah. Well, people think I'm kind of crazy, but I'm actually using it as a real learning experience because I love leadership. I love studying about it. I love learning how influence works. Well, when you're the cheese, there's a certain level of that what you say goes. But when you're trying to lead from the middle, it's a whole nother skill set. So you have to learn how to influence those that you don't have ultimate control over, or you have to learn to lead up, which is a big challenge as well. So I took it as a personal challenge and a growth experience. Like, hey, okay, here's a chance. Let's see what this is all about. And plus, what better place to do it than ServiceTitan? I mean, they've got phenomenal business model and everything about it. But then also back to their mission. Whenever I remember where it first stemmed from is they invited me out to an event. I got to speak to their team. And I told Vahe, the co-founder, I'm like, you've done good, Vahe, by bringing in some contractor voice to your company, because they just hired Tom Howard from the industry. I said, you should do more of that. He said, you think so? And I'm like, yeah. I said, hey, I might even be interested in coming and joining. Well, then Tom contacts me and Ara, the other co-founder, and Ara said something. He's like, Chris, if you want to help contractors at scale, this is the place. We need people that have been where you are and have came out the other side and now want to give back. And if you want to make a difference, which I think you do, I need you and our customers need you. And I'm like, all right, I'm up for the challenge then. So it really went back to the mission base. I was drawn in by the mission and the vision of where they're going.
I think that's so exciting. I loved what you said about that lead up moment. I feel like I work best in that. I will take over if there's not a leader. Okay, I'm in charge. If there's a strong leader, I like it even better because then I have a little bit of latitude.
Yeah.
I know if there's a solid foundation in the company, and then how I can influence both up and down the org chart really intrigues me. I relate to that a lot.
Yeah.
I think part of it is I remember many times where I was an underappreciated team member.
Yep.
Underpaid, underappreciated. No one listened. Your front line knows what's wrong and they know how to fix it. And that I try to remember it. I consider myself too a champion of the trades. These people, what work they do, because I don't do any of it. You're at least a technician. All I do is hold their beer, man. So it's very important to me to do what I can to promote and champion the trades. I love that.
That is not an easy skill. And it's also, if you've been either the owner or the main manager for a long time, you tend to lose what it feels like. And it's also reignited in me the true need for leadership to show what we're doing here. What's the vision, how to get out of their way, because I could easily see how employees would feel, when you're not completely in control. So it's been eye-opening for me.
It's just an endless journey here. And I love the position that you have now. Did you move from Oklahoma? Like, where are you living?
Yeah, so I moved to Texas. So believe it or not, back to seeking out good advice. I asked Ron Smith, I said, Ron, when you sold your company, what'd you do? And he said, well, I moved. I'm like, okay, why'd you move, Ron? He said, well, because I couldn't go anywhere, Chris. He said, every time I went to the grocery store or this place, everyone would give me the what for, like it's not the same, or can you believe they're doing that over there? Or I can't believe you sold. So I was from a small town, in Oklahoma, And I thought about that, and I thought about for my kids and everything else. So I wanted to find a place that had a lot of opportunity. And I thought, why not? I mean, there's nothing holding us back. So I found a really awesome place outside of Dallas. We're still just an hour and a half away from, our old hometown, but it's an awesome place. And the experience has been really great, even though it's been through COVID. But my son has blossomed in school and just got a lot of opportunity where we're at.
Has the work-life balance, how many kids do you have?
I got 3. Yeah. And now
3.
grandkids, 4 grandkids.
4 grandkids. Okay. How have you approached that? I mean, it's a question usually we ask of women, but I would think it's a question we should ask of everyone, because I've seen so many people, and certainly I have sacrificed my health or my relationships at times with business. Talk to me more about that. In addition to that health crisis you have, or maybe because of that, how are you finding balance there?
You know what, Ellen, this is where I think most driven people struggle the most, including myself, because, before there was no off switch, all the time we were on. Even if I was off, I was still on and I couldn't shut it off, even if I wanted to. So I think of it now, I look at it as seasons, where there's seasons where I need to devote to starting a business or really jumping in. And I think of even the season as now kind of compartmentalizing. The biggest difference between working for an organization like ServiceTitan and being an operator at a company is it's so weird, Ellen. When it's 5 o'clock, my phone goes quiet. When it's the weekend, I'm like looking down to see the text, and almost like craving, something, and there's nothing. They're off, and it's taken me a little bit to adjust that. But it's also made me really reflect back and think, okay, let's be intentional about this. So when I'm off, let's be 100% on for my family. I still fail, Ellen. I'll be honest, today even, I felt terrible about it, but I'm sitting there reading the email and I'm typing and my wife was talking to me and I wasn't paying any attention. And I realized, oh no, this is what happens. When you're driven, and whatever I do, I'm sure whatever you do it 110% to a fault. So I wish there was an easier answer, but it takes very intentional effort not to cheat those that really you make the excuse that you're doing everything for, but they have to come in that order like I listed before, where they came first and then work and champion for the trade was at the end. That's why I say, as long as I don't get the order messed up, everything is fine.
I love that. I love how focused you are. So what constitutes a good day for you? Like, I had a great day because.
Yeah. So each year I choose a word of the year, and it really helps me kind of dive in. Well, just so happened this year I chose joy. The reason being is when you are very driven, and when there was a finish line, like selling my company or growing to hit X revenue, it was very easy to measure progress and relate that to happiness. Yeah, man, we did X dollars today, happy. Or we hit this goal. Yes, I'm happy. Well, now in this season, I'm having to rewind a little bit and go back to finding joy in the day to day in everything. I'm finding joy in this conversation or sweeping the floor, whatever it is. I need to be able to find joy in that. So I've been really intentional about trying to do that this year. So for me, a good day, happiness equals a day where I enjoyed the day. I didn't take it for granted. Every moment I was present, not always looking at the future. I was living right there and giving my full attention to whatever was right in front of me instead of always being out in front or thinking out ahead of where I was going.
I like the word idea, and I came up with the word love for this year. Love.
Good one.
I love transforms. Oprah does this, I guess. I read this once upon a time, and she said one year she picked the word strength and she doesn't recommend it because the whole year was just full of all these super challenging times.
Yeah, I can believe it. I picked discipline one year, and that was yeah, I learned some discipline. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it. You get what that what you recognize, you energize is what Mark Victor Hansen said. What would you consider the best tool in your toolbox? Meaning, like, what is the specific set of skills that you have that you can bring it, that I got this.
Yeah, I think it's truly relationship skills or people skills. I'm definitely not the smartest business person, and even now it's showing its head even more at ServiceTitan because I work with all these people that have brilliant degrees and MBAs and all this pedigree, and so I'm always the lowest in the room, I guess you could say, but I love connecting with people. And I think if you surround yourself with great people, you learn from those people, that's a tool, man. It's a strength. So if you're not blessed with like genius, and all these other skills, learn how to win friends and influence people. I mean, that's it.
I love that. I love that. Well, you have had a lot of success in your life, but I bet you've made a mistake or two. Tell us about a great one.
Oh boy. Yeah. And I've made all kinds of mistakes. I mean, literally all kinds of mistakes. I've invested in businesses that have failed. I've tried new promotions at work that failed. I've invested in people or brought them on my team that have been huge mistakes and they failed. But I try not to look at them as failures. I look at them as, hey, that was a good miss, because I want to learn from it and make sure, one, I don't do it again, or if I do it again, I can do it differently. So although I have had many failures, I guess you could say, I'd rather say I've had many good misses, and I've learned from them, and they've ultimately made me stronger today.
Well, you talked about selling your company and then selling it again. I mean, I think we live in the golden age of our industry right now. That I have never seen the activity. And COVID in many ways was really reinforcing that we are fortunate to be in these resilient industries. So there may be people who want to transition their company. What advice would you give them? Like, if you could do it again, what would you do different? Or what did you do as you were going to sell your company that really made all the difference?
But believe it or not, Ellen, and I can't remember exactly when this was, but I assume it was in 2018. I can't, because that's at the end of the year I sold my business. But you were up on stage and you made a comment. You said, the window is open right now. I don't know if you remember that, but you did.
I do remember that.
Okay,
I've been kind of obsessed with this because
yes, okay.
I'm paying attention.
So you said that, and I was already kind of thinking the end in mind. I knew that, all right, it's getting close to that, so I'm going to seek out these people. You said that, and it like triggered in me. So then I fly out like literally like the next month to visit King Goodrich, and he said, Chris, the window only opens so many times. And I'm like, I just heard Ellen Rohr say the exact same thing. So here's two people I really admire and trust that are saying the window is open and it doesn't stay open. But right now, you are exactly right. So if anyone is thinking ever of capitalizing on this window being open, it's wide open. And COVID has only accentuated or exasperated the value of essential services. So my advice for anybody that's thinking about it is to start to prepare today, because when opportunity knocks, you don't have time to go prepare then. Get your books in order. Start learning from those that have went through the process and figure out who to get connected to, what these people are looking for. And my last piece of advice is to put your story together. I didn't realize how important a story was in pitching a business, but it's very important. They can look at numbers all day long and ultimately you'll get paid because of the numbers, but the story is really what draws them in and makes them see if you're a good fit and vice versa. So that's my advice. Start preparing today because this window's open, and how long it'll be open, I don't know, but it's open right now. That's for sure.
Oh, that is so good. And it is, again, it's going to be the relationships, isn't it? Who knows who, and that's going to steer you in the right direction. It's so good. I'm learning so much from you. Okay. Tell us a little bit about Go Time, because one of the things that I love about reading is that smart, successful people, they'll write a book. They'll tell you how you did it. One way to find mentors, especially mentors who are like Benjamin Franklin's one of my mentors. He wrote a lot of stuff. You can learn from him still. So what prompted you to write a book? And maybe you could share one of your favorite books.
Well, it's funny you say Benjamin Franklin is one of your mentors, because likewise, some of my best mentors are what I call the old dead guys, because
Old dead guys, yeah.
the old dead guys, they can't mess up. You know, they're not going to be on the front page of the news next week and be exposed for a fraud. So it's already done. So I love learning from those that back in history. So likewise, I love reading. But you know, this industry, it blessed me richly, Ellen. So I mean, and like I said, I almost pinched myself just because thinking, oh my gosh, I would have, if you'd have went back and told 17-year-old Chris where I would be at today, I would have been like, you're crazy. But one of my mentors, Ben Stark, reached out to me, and it was kind of out of the blue. And he's like, Chris, you know, I've been thinking about writing a book, and I'd love for you to help and do it with me. And I was like, Ben, I'd love to, man. Let's do it. So we both set out to write this book. And about 3 months went by, and we compared notes, and both of us didn't really have nothing. It was hard. We weren't very good at it. So I'm like, Ben, we need a new plan here, buddy. So I knew a really good writer, Dave Rothker. He was another mentor of mine that I'd visited through the years. So I reached out to Dave, and I said, Dave, I got a problem. I said, me and Ben Stark want to write a book to share with the industry, but neither one of us are very good writers. He's like, I got it. So we met with Dave for like an hour, hour and a half each week for almost 2 years. And we would just like this, Ellen, we would talk. He would take what we said, download it, you know, put it on paper. Then Ben and I would go back and contribute and tweak. And at the final result, you know, we came up with It's Go Time, which was pretty much a start to finish lessons learned all through the journey of what we learned. So it's pretty unique because Ben is an old, you know, we call him the old salty dog. He's been there, he's done that. He's done this multiple times. And then I was kind of the young buck, you know, anxious to try and learn from these people like Ben. So it's two perspectives, but down the same path. And it's, even though our personality styles are totally different, our path was very much the same. And Go Time, it means this. So the G is for goals. And it all starts with, what do you want? What's your goal? What do you want to do? And then the O is for observe. And this is the step where you go out and you learn from others. You find who's done it and go and learn from them. And the T in Go Time is take massive action. So a lot of people go and learn, but then they never do anything with the action. I took action, you've taken action, Ben took action, and that action is what produces the results. So that part was about creating. The last part of it, the I, was about inspect. So this was about measuring what you did in the action, having a way to measure your progress. And then the M is for modify. This is planning. This is annual planning. This is tweaking the plan, making adjustments to the action that you took based on the results of the inspection that you did. And then the last, the E, is for engage. It's to stay engaged with your customer, with your team, with your industry, and that networking power. So that's what Go Time means. And we apply that through each chapter in the book, which goes from begin with the end in mind, all the way down to selling your business. Kind of
so good. So good. And Dave Rothacker, I know him from forever ago. So it was so exciting for me to see you connect with him. So how exciting. I mean, you and I have been so fortunate to have so many great mentors, and thank you for being one of mine. This has been such an inspiring conversation. Only for the sake of time am I going to cut you off here. Thank you for coming to this podcast and sharing with me. Chris, you're one of my all-time favorites. So thanks. Do you have any parting words for us? What would you like to share that perhaps you thought you would share and I haven't given you a chance to share yet?
I think we've covered it. The only thing that I would like to inspire or share with your listeners is this is a beautiful trade. I mean, the industry at a whole, and the only way that we're going to continue to make it better is by telling our stories. And so I want to encourage everybody, tell your stories, all that you can to the schools, to the world, everywhere you can, because I want to see these jobs be filled. I want to see more people have stories like yours and mine. But it's going to take us sharing to get the word out that the trades are something to be respected.
Ooh, that's an awesome place for us to land. Thank you for letting us behind the wall, Chris Hunter. I love, love, love you. And that's a wrap. Thanks.